We got an interesting one. I think maybe a first-time kind of question on the Summit Forum. A 10-year-old viewer
Oh,
has a
awesome.
question for you,
Awesome.
and he
Those are the
wants
best
to
questions.
know, what is God made of? What is His spirit? I think I'm very intrigued.
Okay, so here's what's interesting about that. The idea that God could be made of something, when we say it that way, we sometimes think, well, like this table's made of wood, and this mug is made of ceramic, and this pair of glasses is made of plastic, because these are material things, right? I can
It's
go out
the
and
basis
find
of our
wood.
understanding.
Right, so in other words, I could make another table if I had wood. I could make another, if I had ceramic, I could make another pair of glasses. But God is not like that in the sense that He is material. He's an immaterial being. So it's kind of like if you ask yourself, well, what is my mind made of? Well, I don't know. Can you ask that question?
Not your brain.
Not your brain. I can talk about brains. I'm talking about minds.
Yeah.
That's an immaterial reality. As a matter of fact, as an atheist, I didn't believe there was any immaterial reality. There was no God, because you can't make God out of anything. And as an atheist, I said, if there's not matter to make it out of, it doesn't exist. So I think the question for God, what is God made of? Well, He's not made of the things that you typically are thinking of, because He's immaterial. But He's the best explanation for a material universe, because whatever caused the universe can't be made up of material, because there was no matter available until the universe began. So I think this is the best explanation, is an immaterial creator God. But what is He made up of? Well, what is music made up of? Like you're saying notes. What are notes made up of? In other words, if you're trying to reduce it to physicalities, you can talk about waves. But
You're
this
trying
is
to
a
reduce
totally
it to
different
something
thing.
we can understand.
Right. What is the mind made up of? Well, that's kind of similar kind of question.
So in the same kind of context, you mentioned earlier that you'll be the first apologist for your kids
Right.
to have. And so that's, I think, an excellent point for parents and people
Right.
engaging with young people. How do we, if I'm thinking about how the 10-year-old is hearing that question answered, saying, man, I can't
Well, what you
comprehend
can
that.
say is,
How do we start these conversations
Right.
with other kids, or
Yeah.
how do we have these conversations with children, with young people? It's definitely important at a young age to start believing why you
Yes.
believe what you believe. But how do you begin that?
well, I think what you do is you open up another category to kids. So typically when that kind of a question, what is God made up of, is because they only have one category they're thinking of. Everything's made up of something. Well, now we're opening up another immaterial category to kids. Really? We believe in angels and demons and minds and souls and God. And these are things that aren't made up of anything. We can't, like in the end, put these in a laboratory and find the essence behind souls or behind minds. We can't do that. We've now opened up to our kids an entirely new category, which, by the way, is not available to them if the theistic worldview is not true. Under an atheistic worldview, there is no such category. So if nothing else, I just want my kids to know that there's more categories than the world around you is trying to convince you of. They would like to reduce everything to matter. But some things cannot be reduced to matter, and that's why and we know that because you have an experience of mind, right? And how do you account for that? Now, the friends I have that don't believe in the immaterial, they will reduce mind to brain. No, you don't have a mind. That's an illusion. Or they'll redefine what mind is. Or they'll try to make an equivocal relationship between mind and brain. But we all know there are two different things, and we can make a case for that. But my point is, with kids, all I want to do is have them be open to a new category that's not available to them under atheism. If that's all I did, that would be helpful. But now,
Then
if you
as
want to
they
go
age
through,
and can
Yes.
begin to process these things.
well,
now they
we
can
started making a
evaluate
case for
from
this
multiple categories.
to kids in our kids series, right? So we started doing kids books of the adult books, and we just finished God's Crime Scene for Kids, and there's a chapter in there on mind. It was a hard chapter to write because you've got to reduce, probably 50 or 60 years of philosophy about the problem of mind in a way that an 8-year-old can capture it and say, okay, I get it. That's enough for me to know that brains are different than minds. And if there are two different things, brains and minds, and only one is available unless God exists. If God exists, that's the mind that created everything. He would create in His image. Well, all of a sudden, don't be surprised if you have a mind. So if we can at least do that, we've opened up a whole other category to our kids that, by the way, is not available to them if they just listen to the secular world around them teaching this in school. They'll deny the presence of mind for the most part, or they'll redefine mind or as behavior, as other kinds of things. But the point is, I couldn't go through all of that. Now, in the adult book, I can spend 2,000 words just talking about alternatives, or 5,000 words. But here, the whole book is like, the size of the one chapter.
Yeah.
So I've got to figure out a quick way to do it. So I'm hopefully trying to throw the ball in a way that kids can catch it.
Yeah, and I would definitely recommend. We have at summit.org. You can get God's Crime or
Yes,
Cold Case Christianity for
Kids.
kids, and then in October, is that
Yeah,
right?
it's, I think
God's
September
Crime
1st.
Scene,
September 1st we'll have it,
Okay,
so it's coming up
so
soon.
very soon
Yeah.
you'll be able to also get God's Crime Scene for kids as well. And so those are great places to start
Right.
having these conversations and opening up
That's
some
right.
possibilities that the culture doesn't necessarily
right.
present
Doesn't provide
to
you.
to students. So.